What if I told you that this new moon is not about manifesting, not about chasing signs, and not about waiting for a message, but about something finally ending in the divine masculine's inner world? What if the shift you've been feeling lately isn't random exhaustion, emotional numbness, or sudden calm, but the quiet moment when the divine masculine finally lets go of the past? Take a breath for a moment. Because if you're here, if this video found you right now, it's not by accident. This new moon energy feels different. Not louder, not dramatic, but final. And that's unsettling, isn't it? Because we've been conditioned to expect fireworks, sudden confessions, emotional messages, dramatic reunions. But real soul-level change rarely announces itself that way. Instead, it arrives in silence, in stillness, in the moment when resistance finally collapses. Let me ask you something and be honest with yourself. Have you noticed that you're no longer anxious the way you used to be? Not hopeful in the same desperate way? Not constantly checking signs, readings, or timelines? Have you felt moments where you thought, I don't know what's happening, but something is over? That's the energy of this new moon. This is not about beginnings yet. This is about closure on a soul level, especially for the divine masculine. For so long, the divine masculine has been running, not from you but from himself. Running from emotions he didn't know how to name. Running from wounds he didn't know how to hold. Running from a version of himself that felt too broken, too ashamed, too afraid to love fully. And you felt it, didn't you? You felt the push and pull. The hot and cold. The sudden closeness followed by distance. The promises that never quite became reality. But this new moon doesn't carry chasing energy. It carries release. This is the kind of energy that whispers instead of shouts. The kind that doesn't force change, it allows it. And here's the part most people misunderstand. Letting go does not always mean walking away from you physically. And it doesn't always mean coming toward you either. Letting go means something far more uncomfortable for the divine masculine. It means releasing the identity he used to survive. The mask. The emotional armor. The coping mechanisms that once kept him safe but now keep him stuck. Ask yourself this. How long can someone pretend they're fine before the weight of their own avoidance becomes unbearable? How long can someone live disconnected from their heart before the soul demands honesty? This new moon marks that breaking point. And no, it's not dramatic. It's not explosive. It's exhausting. This is the moment when the divine masculine realizes that holding on to the past hurts more than facing it. The past could be an old relationship, an old version of himself, an old belief like I'm not enough or love always costs too much. But under this new moon, those old stories lose their power. Not because someone convinced him, not because you waited long enough, but because his soul is done carrying what no longer fits. And if you're the divine feminine watching this, here's what matters most. This shift does not require your effort. You don't need to reach out. You don't need to explain. You don't need to prove your worth. In fact, the more you step back into yourself, the louder this inner awakening becomes for him. That's why so many of you feel strangely calm right now. It's not because you stopped caring. It's because your nervous system is finally standing down from the battlefield. You're not fighting for love anymore. You're choosing peace. And that choice changes everything. Let me say something that might be uncomfortable to hear. This new moon is not asking, will we reunite? It's asking, what happens when both souls stop running, even from themselves? Because union is not created by desire. It's created by truth. And truth always begins with letting go of what we were never meant to carry forever. So as we move deeper into this new moon update, keep this in mind. Things feel quiet. If communication feels paused, if answers feel delayed, it's not because nothing is happening. It's because something irreversible is unfolding beneath the surface. This is the moment before the tide turns. And in the next part, we're going to explore why this new moon energy feels so different, and how it's triggering a deep subconscious reset in the divine masculine, whether he's aware of it or not. Stay with me. This new moon doesn't arrive with excitement. It doesn't come with sudden motivation or a rush of hope. Instead, it arrives quietly, almost unnoticed, like the moment your body finally exhales after holding tension for far too long. And that's exactly why it feels different. Most people misunderstand new moon energy. They think it's about setting intentions, manifesting goals, or calling something in. But in the twin flame journey, especially for the divine masculine, this new moon is not about adding anything new. It's about subtracting what no longer belongs. This is not a forward-moving energy. It's an inward collapsing one. Think about that for a moment. Growth doesn't always look like expansion. Sometimes it looks like something inside you finally giving up the fight. And for the divine masculine, that fight has been ongoing for lifetimes. The new moon governs the subconscious. It works beneath logic, beneath personality, beneath ego. It doesn't ask permission. It doesn't negotiate. It simply reveals what can no longer be hidden. That's why this new moon feels heavier for some, emptier for others, and strangely peaceful for those who've already done deep inner work. This is not emotional chaos. This is integration. The divine masculine has spent much of the twin flame journey living from the outside in, responding to pressure, adapting to expectations, surviving instead of feeling. And survival creates habits. Habits of avoidance, habits of distraction, habits of postponing truth until later. But the subconscious has a limit. And under this new moon, that limit has been reached. Here's what's happening energetically. The old coping mechanisms are no longer working. The things that used to numb the pain, work, status, distractions, other connections, no longer provide relief. They feel empty, pointless, draining. Not because they are wrong, but because they no longer align with who the divine masculine is becoming. And that creates discomfort. Not dramatic discomfort, but the kind that seeps into quiet moments. Late at night, early in the morning, in the pauses between distractions. This new moon forces stillness. And stillness is terrifying when you've spent your life running from yourself. Let me ask you something. What happens when someone can no longer outrun their own emotions? They don't explode. They don't collapse publicly. They turn inward. They withdraw. They go quiet. They begin questioning everything they once thought was normal. This is why some divine masculines seem distant right now. Not colder but deeper. They are no longer reacting. They are reckoning. The new moon energy strips away false urgency. There's no more, "I'll deal with this later." No more, "It's not the right time." No more, "I don't know how." Because the soul is asking a different question now. How long can I live out of alignment and still call this a life? And that question cannot be ignored. This is why this new moon doesn't trigger action immediately. Triggers realization. The kind that changes a person from the inside out. For the divine masculine, this realization is brutal in its honesty. It exposes the cost of avoidance, the cost of pride, the cost of choosing safety over truth. And once that cost is seen clearly, there is no going back. You see, ego can survive denial, but it cannot survive awareness. That's the power of this new moon. It dissolves illusions. Not illusions about you, but illusions about himself. The illusion that he was fine. The illusion that he didn't need healing. The illusion that love was optional rather than essential. And when those illusions fall away, grief often follows. Not grief for you. Grief for lost time. For missed opportunities. For the self he abandoned in order to survive. This is why some divine masculines feel unexpectedly tired right now. Soul-level exhaustion. They are mourning the version of themselves they can no longer be. And here's the part most people don't talk about. This new moon also brings relief. Because holding a false identity is exhausting. Pretending not to care is exhausting. Pretending not to feel is exhausting. Letting go hurts. But it also frees. And that's why this energy feels oddly peaceful for the divine feminine. You're not absorbing his turmoil anymore. The energetic cords of struggle are dissolving. You're no longer carrying his confusion for him. You're standing in your own space. And from that space, clarity emerges, not control. This new moon is not about reunion yet. It's about inner alignment. And inner alignment must happen before any external union can stabilize. Because a connection built on avoidance will always collapse. But a connection built on truth can endure. So if you're feeling a strange mix of emptiness and calm, if the longing has softened, if the obsession has faded, That's not loss. That's progress. This new moon is not taking love away. It's removing distortion. And in the next part, we're going to explore the divine masculine's internal breaking point. The moment when holding on to the past becomes more painful than facing it. Because that moment has already begun. Stay with me. There is a moment in every deep soul journey when running becomes more painful than stopping. Not dramatic, not explosive, but quietly unbearable. This is the moment the divine masculine is entering now. For a long time, the divine masculine survived by holding everything together. By being strong. By being rational. By being in control. Control felt safer than vulnerability. Logic felt safer than emotion. Distance felt safer than intimacy. And from the outside it often looked like confidence, independence, detachment. But on the inside something very different was happening. Because strength without emotional truth eventually turns into isolation. And isolation, no matter how well defended, always reaches a breaking point. Let me ask you a question. How long can someone suppress their heart before the body and soul intervene? The divine masculine didn't avoid feeling because he didn't care. He avoided feeling because he didn't know how to feel without falling apart. Many divine masculines learned early in life that emotions were dangerous. That vulnerability led to rejection. That expressing needs led to disappointment. That trusting love meant losing control. So they adapted. They learned to intellectualize pain, to minimize longing, to rationalize distance. And for a while that worked. Until it didn't. Because suppression doesn't erase emotion. It stores it. Every unspoken truth. Every avoided conversation. Every denied longing. All of it accumulates. And under this new moon energy, the subconscious vault has finally cracked open. This is not the kind of breaking point where someone lashes out. It's the kind where they go silent. Where distractions stop working. Where external validation feels hollow. Where achievements no longer fill the emptiness they once masked. This is when the divine masculine begins to feel tired in a way sleep can't fix. Soul tired. And here's the most important thing to understand. This exhaustion is not weakness. It's honesty finally breaking through resistance. The divine masculine is realizing that running from the past hasn't protected him. It's imprisoned him. Running from old wounds. Running from old relationships. Running from old versions of himself that felt unworthy, ashamed, or afraid. And at some point the question arises, what am I actually running toward? Because avoidance has no destination, only repetition. This is the moment when the divine masculine begins to see the pattern clearly. Not just with you, but with life. The same emotional loops. The same endings. The same sense of something missing. And once that awareness settles in, denial is no longer possible. That's the breaking point. Not when pain arrives, but when truth becomes unavoidable. Many divine masculines experience this as a deep internal contradiction. On one level, they want peace. On another, they fear surrender. Because surrender feels like losing control. But control has already failed. And that realization is terrifying. This is why the divine masculine often appears withdrawn during this phase. Not because he's indifferent, but because he's overwhelmed by clarity. He's seeing the cost of his defenses, the cost of choosing safety over authenticity, the cost of postponing healing, the cost of believing he could outthink his heart. And that cost is loneliness. Not the absence of people, but the absence of connection. Connection to himself. Connection to meaning. Connection to love that feels real instead of manageable. This is the moment when the divine masculine stops blaming circumstances. He can no longer say, "It's not the right time," or "I'm too busy," or "I don't know what I want." Because beneath those excuses, the truth is louder now. I've been afraid. Afraid of being seen. Afraid of being needed. Afraid of needing someone else. And fear, once acknowledged, loses its power to control. That's why this breaking point doesn't lead to chaos. It leads to stillness. The divine masculine isn't being pushed forward yet. He's being pulled inward, forced to sit with questions he's avoided for years. What am I protecting? Who am I without my armor? What happens if I stop running? And here's the part that often surprises the divine feminine. This inner collapse has nothing to do with punishment or karma. It's not suffering for the sake of suffering. It's correction. The soul correcting a trajectory that has gone too far from truth. This is why you may feel a strange sense of compassion for him now, even if you've been hurt, because on a soul level you recognize this moment. You've been here yourself. The moment when you realize that fighting love was costing you more than losing it ever could. The divine masculine is finally catching up to that realization. And it changes everything. Not overnight, not externally, but internally a line has been crossed. He can no longer unsee what he sees now. The past no longer feels like something to avoid, feels like something to integrate. And integration requires letting go. Not of love, but of fear. In the next part, we're going to explore what the divine masculine is actually releasing under this new moon. Because letting go of the past doesn't mean what most people think it does. Stay with me. When people hear the phrase letting go of the past, they often imagine something external. An ex-partner, a situation, a chapter closing with a dramatic goodbye. But for the divine masculine, letting go of the past under this new moon is far more subtle and far more profound. Because what's being released is not a person. It's an identity built for survival, not for truth. For a long time, the divine masculine believed that the past was something to outrun, something to bury, something to forget. But the soul doesn't work that way. The soul doesn't erase experiences. It integrates them. And integration can only happen when resistance ends. So what is actually being released now? First, the divine masculine is letting go of old emotional contracts. Unspoken promises like, I must never be weak. I must always stay in control. If I don't fully feel, I won't fully lose. These contracts were formed early, often in childhood, sometimes across lifetimes, and they shaped how he learned to love. Love became something to manage, not to inhabit. Something to ration, not to surrender to. Under this new moon, those contracts are dissolving. Not because he consciously decided to change, but because they no longer protect him. They no longer serve the man he is becoming. Second, he is releasing shame that was never truly his. Shame around not being enough. Shame around emotional needs. Shame around wanting love deeply while pretending not to. Many divine masculines learned that their worth was tied to performance, success, strength, stoicism. And anything that threatened that image had to be hidden. But shame thrives in secrecy. And under this new moon, secrecy is no longer sustainable. The divine masculine is beginning to see that the parts of himself he rejected were not flaws. They were unmet needs. Needs for safety, for understanding, for emotional permission. Letting go of the past means releasing the belief that those needs made him weak. Third, the divine masculine is letting go of false attachments. This is often misunderstood. It doesn't always mean leaving a karmic partner immediately. It doesn't always mean drastic external changes. It means the emotional grip loosens. The dependency fades. The obligation dissolves. The connection loses its charge. Because many past attachments were not rooted in love. They were rooted in familiarity, fear, or avoidance. Under this new moon, the divine masculine begins to feel the difference. What once felt comfortable now feels heavy. What once felt safe now feels limiting. And that realization cannot be undone. Fourth, he is releasing the illusion of time control. The belief that later is always available. That healing can wait. That love can be postponed without consequence. The new moon collapses timelines. It brings everything into the present moment. And in the present moment, the divine masculine realizes something startling. The cost of waiting has already been paid. Not by you, but by him. Missed connection. Missed intimacy. Missed authenticity. This is not regret for what could have been. It's clarity about what cannot continue. And clarity changes behavior eventually. But before action comes grief. Because letting go of the past also means letting go of the version of himself who believed he had unlimited time. Fifth, the divine masculine is releasing the need to be right. Right about why it didn't work. Right about why distance was necessary. Right about why vulnerability was dangerous. Being right protected his ego. But it also isolated his heart. Under this new moon, something shifts. The question is no longer, was I justified? The question becomes, was I aligned? And alignment always asks for humility. This is why the divine masculine may feel quieter than usual, less defensive, less reactive, more introspective, not because he has answers, but because he's finally asking the right questions. And here's a crucial truth for the divine feminine. This release is happening internally, not theatrically. There may be no announcement. No confession. No immediate reconciliation. But make no mistake, this is real. Letting go of the past at this level is not about forgetting. It's about forgiving himself. Forgiving himself for not knowing what he knows now. For choosing fear when love felt overwhelming. For surviving in ways that eventually became cages. And forgiveness is the gateway to transformation. Because once the divine masculine forgives himself, he no longer needs to run. He no longer needs distractions to numb pain. He no longer needs distance to feel safe. He can finally sit with his own heart. And that changes everything. This is why you may feel a subtle energetic shift. Less tension. Less urgency. Less emotional turbulence. The cords of the past are loosening. Not breaking violently but dissolving gently. And when something dissolves, it doesn't snap back. Simply fades. In the next part, we're going to explore the signs that the divine masculine is truly letting go. Because real surrender looks very different from avoidance. Stay with me. Letting go does not look the way most people expect. It is not loud. It is not dramatic. It does not come with sudden declarations or grand gestures. In fact, when the divine masculine truly begins to let go, it often looks like nothing is happening at all. And that's where confusion begins. Because for so long, movement in the twin flame journey was measured by action. Messages, pulls and pushes, appearances and disappearances. But real surrender doesn't perform. It settles. So how do you know the divine masculine is actually letting go, not avoiding, not suppressing, not running again? The signs are subtle, internal, and often uncomfortable. Let's talk about them. The first sign: emotional exhaustion replaces resistance. When the divine masculine is still running, there is tension, mental justification, defensiveness, rational explanations for distance. But when letting go begins, resistance collapses into fatigue. Not physical tiredness, but emotional depletion. He feels tired of holding up walls, tired of explaining himself to himself, tired of pretending he doesn't care. This exhaustion is not depression. It's the nervous system giving up control. Because control requires energy, and that energy is gone. And once resistance ends, truth has space to surface. The second sign: silence that feels different. Silence during avoidance feels sharp, reactive, punitive. Silence during surrender feels heavy and honest. The divine masculine may withdraw, but not to escape. He withdraws to process. This is when he stops reaching for distractions, stops numbing, stops seeking external validation. He sits with discomfort instead of outrunning it. And for someone who spent a lifetime avoiding their inner world, this is monumental. If you felt a pause that feels final, not tense, not charged, that's not abandonment. That's integration. The third sign: loss of interest in old patterns. Old patterns once felt familiar, predictable, safe, but now they feel hollow. The divine masculine may suddenly feel disconnected from old dynamics, old relationships, old routines. Not because they were wrong, but because they no longer resonate. This can look like boredom, apathy, disinterest. But beneath that is discernment. The soul is quietly saying, this is no longer who I am. And once that realization settles in, there is no going back. The fourth sign: increased self-honesty without self-punishment. This is a crucial difference. False awakening brings shame, self-judgment, harsh inner criticism. True letting go brings honesty without cruelty. The divine masculine begins to acknowledge his fears without attacking himself. He sees his past choices clearly, without needing to justify them or drown in guilt. This balance is rare and powerful. It means ego defenses are dissolving. And when ego softens, humility enters. Not humiliation, humility. The willingness to see reality without distortion. The fifth sign. A deep desire for authenticity, even if it costs comfort. At this stage, the divine masculine becomes less interested in appearances. What people think matters less. What feels true matters more. He may question his life choices, his relationships, his sense of purpose. This can feel destabilizing, but it's not chaos, it's recalibration. He's no longer willing to live a life that looks right but feels empty. And that shift cannot be reversed. The sixth sign. He stops blaming circumstances. This is one of the clearest indicators of real surrender. No more. It wasn't the right time. I had no choice. Things were complicated. Instead, there is quiet ownership. Not dramatic accountability, but internal acknowledgement. I was afraid. I didn't know how. I chose safety over truth. This honesty is not shared outwardly yet. It happens internally first. And internal accountability always precedes transformation. The seventh sign. The emotional charge around the divine feminine softens. This surprises many people. When the divine masculine is letting go, he doesn't become more obsessive. He becomes calmer. The anxiety dissolves. The push-pull energy fades. The internal tug-of-war quiets. Not because love disappeared, but because fear is loosening its grip. Love without fear feels spacious. And space is where clarity lives. The eighth sign. A growing comfort with uncertainty. Before, uncertainty triggered panic, avoidance, control. Now uncertainty is tolerated. The divine masculine no longer needs answers immediately. He no longer needs guarantees. This is a massive shift. Because surrender is not knowing and trusting anyway. And trust begins inside. The ninth sign. Time feels slower. This is subtle but profound. When someone is running, time feels urgent, pressed, limited. When someone lets go, time expands. There is less rushing, less pressure, less forcing. The divine masculine begins to understand that alignment cannot be hurried. And that understanding changes everything. The 10th sign. A quiet sense of inevitability. Not destiny, not fantasy. Inevitability. A knowing that something fundamental has shifted, and life will not return to what it was. This knowing doesn't come with excitement. It comes with stillness. And stillness is where truth settles. If you're the divine feminine and you've felt less urgency, less attachment, more grounding, that's not separation. That's balance returning. Because when one soul stops running, the other no longer needs to chase. And in the next part, we'll explore how this shift affects the divine feminine energetically, and why you're calm right now is not accidental. Stay with me. When the divine masculine begins to truly let go, something remarkable happens on the other side of the connection. Not externally, not through messages or visible actions, but energetically. And if you are the divine feminine watching this, you may already feel it, even if you can't explain it. Because this shift does not arrive as excitement. It arrives as relief. For so long, the divine feminine carried the emotional weight of the connection. You held space. You waited. You felt deeply, often for both of you. You processed emotions the divine masculine could not yet access. And that created imbalance. Not because you did something wrong, but because one soul was awake while the other was surviving. But now, as the divine masculine releases the past internally, the energetic pressure begins to lift. And the first thing the divine feminine feels is not joy. It's stillness. A stillness that feels unfamiliar after so much intensity. Let me ask you something. Have you noticed that you're no longer trying to figure it out? Not analyzing every sign. Not searching for meaning in every silence. Not emotionally bracing yourself for the next push or pull. That's not indifference. That's alignment. When the divine masculine stops running internally, the divine feminine no longer needs to chase energetically. And the nervous system responds immediately. Your body relaxes. Your breath deepens. Your focus shifts back to yourself. This is not coincidence. Twin flame connections operate through resonance, not effort. When one side releases fear, the other side releases vigilance. And vigilance has been your burden for a long time. The divine feminine often confuses this new calm with loss. You may think, why don't I feel the same longing? Why am I not crying anymore? Why does it feel quiet? But quiet is not emptiness. Quiet is safety. Your system is finally leaving survival mode. And survival mode has shaped much of your journey. You learn to love while bracing for impact, to hope while protecting yourself, to feel deeply while expecting disappointment. But that pattern cannot exist when the energetic threat dissolves. The divine masculine's internal surrender sends a signal. You no longer need to fight for this. And your soul responds instantly. You may notice that your thoughts about the connection feel different now. Less obsessive, less urgent, more spacious. You're not forcing detachment. It's happening naturally, because true detachment is not rejection. It's trust. Trust that what is aligned will remain, and what is not will fall away without resistance. This is a major milestone for the divine feminine, because your journey was never about waiting for someone else to wake up. It was about reclaiming your own center. And now that center is solid, you are no longer orbiting the connection. The connection is aligning around you, and that changes everything. Another powerful effect you may be experiencing is emotional neutrality. Not numbness, not avoidance. Neutrality. You can think about the divine masculine without emotional spikes, without pain, without longing. This neutrality is not the end of love. It's the end of attachment. And attachment is what kept the cycle alive. The divine feminine often believes that love must be intense to be real. But intensity is not love, it's imbalance. True love is steady, grounded, unforced. And as this energy shifts, you may notice something unexpected. Your life begins to expand, not in dramatic ways, but in subtle ones. You feel more present, more engaged, more creative. You begin investing energy where it's reciprocated, not where it's withheld. You stop waiting. And that's not because you gave up hope. It's because hope has matured into self-respect. You are no longer measuring your worth by someone else's readiness. And that is liberation. Here's the paradox that often surprises people. This is when the divine masculine can finally feel you. Not because you reached out, not because you pulled, but because you released. Your grounded presence becomes undeniable. Not loud, not demanding, but stable. And stability is magnetic to someone who has lived in chaos. The divine masculine does not feel chased anymore. He feels space. And in that space, clarity forms. This is why many divine feminines report a sense of, I don't need to do anything anymore. That's not stagnation. That's completion of a phase. Your role as the emotional carrier is ending. You no longer need to process lessons for both of you. Each soul is now responsible for itself. And that is the only condition under which true union can exist. This phase can feel disorienting, because drama disappears. Intensity fades. The familiar emotional highs and lows are gone. But what replaces them is something far more valuable. Peace. Peace does not excite the ego, but it nourishes the soul. And if you allow yourself to remain here, without forcing meaning, without rushing the outcome, you'll notice something profound. You feel whole. Not waiting. Not lacking. Not incomplete. Whole. And from wholeness, all aligned connections emerge naturally. In the next part, we'll explore a realistic twin flame scenario. A grounded example of how this shift unfolds quietly, without spectacle. Because true transformation doesn't need witnesses. Stay with me. Not every awakening comes with tears, confessions, or dramatic reunions. Most of them don't. In fact, the most important shifts in the twin flame journey often happen when no one is watching. When there are no signs to interpret, no messages to decode, no external proof to hold on to. So let me share a realistic scenario. Not a fantasy, not an idealized ending, but a moment that reflects how this new moon energy actually works. Imagine a divine masculine named Daniel. Daniel doesn't wake up one morning and suddenly decide to change his life. There is no lightning bolt, no epiphany that feels spiritual or cinematic. Instead, there is a quiet moment. It's late at night. The house is silent. The distractions are gone. The phone is face down on the table. For the first time in a long while, Daniel feels empty. Not sad. Not angry. Just empty. The things that used to keep him busy no longer work the same way. Scrolling feels pointless. Noise feels irritating. And in that stillness, something uncomfortable rises. Not thoughts. Feelings. A heaviness in the chest. Pressure he can't explain away. He tries to ignore it. He gets up. Pours a glass of water. Walks around. But it follows him. This is the moment most people miss. This is where the shift begins. Daniel doesn't think about the divine feminine directly. Not consciously. He's not replaying memories or fantasizing about reunion. Instead, he's confronting a question he's avoided for years. Why does everything feel hollow? That question has nothing to do with anyone else. It has everything to do with truth. And under this new moon, that truth doesn't allow escape. He realizes something unsettling. He's been living his life on autopilot. Making choices that look reasonable. Doing what's expected. Avoiding anything that feels too deep, too risky, too emotional. And suddenly, that strategy feels unsustainable. This is not guilt. It's clarity. Daniel begins to notice patterns. How he disconnects when things feel real. How he rationalizes distance. How he tells himself he's fine when he isn't. And here's the key point. He doesn't judge himself for it. That's new. In the past, awareness triggered defensiveness. Now it triggers honesty. He sits down. He doesn't reach out to anyone. He doesn't journal. He doesn't cry. He simply sits with the truth. And the truth is this. He has been afraid of fully living. Not just loving living. Afraid of choosing something that might break him open. Afraid of losing control. Afraid of needing. And in that moment something releases. Not dramatically. Internally. The tension he's been holding dissolves slightly. Not enough to feel good. But enough to feel real. Meanwhile, somewhere else the divine feminine, let's call her Maya, is experiencing something very different. She's not thinking about Daniel either. She's not checking her phone. She's going about her day, working, moving, living. But she notices something subtle. She feels lighter. There's no emotional pull in her chest. No longing. No ache. Not because she doesn't care, but because she's no longer carrying emotional weight that isn't hers. She feels grounded. And that grounding is new. She doesn't label it. She doesn't question it. She just lives. This is how the shift actually works. No communication. No synchronization that's obvious. No signs screaming. Something is happening. Yet everything is changing. Back to Daniel. Over the next few days, nothing external changes. He still goes to work. Still interacts with people. Still lives his life. But internally, something has crossed a line. He can no longer lie to himself. He begins to notice when he avoids. When he distracts. When he numbs. And instead of escaping, he pauses. This pause is surrender. Not giving up. Not giving in. But stopping the fight. This is where the past loosens its grip. Old emotional narratives lose intensity. Old attachments feel less charged. Old justifications no longer convince him. He doesn't suddenly want to fix things. He doesn't feel compelled to reach out. He just wants to be honest. And honesty is the foundation of every true transformation. At the same time, Maya feels no urge to push. No urge to chase. No urge to wait. She's present. She's engaged in her life. And that presence is the missing piece. Because twin flame journeys don't resolve when one person awakens. They resolve when both stop abandoning themselves. Daniel stops abandoning his emotions. Maya stops abandoning her peace. And neither of them announces it. That's the part people struggle with. They expect visible proof. But the deepest shifts are energetic. Silent. Invisible. Irreversible. Weeks later or months, something external may happen. Or it may not. That's not the point. The point is this. The old dynamic is gone. The chase is gone. The resistance is gone. The imbalance is gone. And once a dynamic dissolves, it cannot be revived. Whatever comes next, union, separation, or a new form entirely, will emerge from truth, not fear. This is the new moon energy at work. Not forcing outcomes, not accelerating timelines, but restoring alignment. And in the next part, we'll explore why surrender, not effort, is the only path forward from here, and why anything forced now will only recreate the old cycle. Stay with me. There comes a point on the twin flame journey where effort stops working. Not because you didn't try hard enough, not because you didn't love deeply enough, but because love was never meant to be earned through struggle. This is the moment we're standing in now. The new moon didn't arrive to push anything forward. It arrived to remove what was false. And the most difficult thing to release, for both the divine masculine and the divine feminine, is the belief that union happens through effort, through waiting, through holding on, through enduring pain long enough to deserve love. But that belief was born in fear. And fear can never create union. Let's talk about surrender, because it is one of the most misunderstood concepts in the twin flame journey. Surrender is often mistaken for giving up, for losing hope, for walking away, for resigning yourself to separation. But true surrender is none of those things. Surrender is alignment without attachment. It's the moment you stop trying to control the outcome and start honoring the truth of the present moment. And that moment is terrifying to the ego, because the ego survives on effort, on timelines, on certainty. The ego asks, when will this happen? What should I do next? How do I make this work? But the soul asks a very different question. Who am I becoming while I wait? This is where the journey shifts, because forcing union always recreates the same cycle. Chasing creates running. Pushing creates resistance. Waiting creates power imbalance. No matter how spiritual the language sounds, effort rooted in fear still produces separation. That's why so many twin flame connections feel intense but unstable. They're fueled by longing, not truth. And longing is not love. Longing is the soul remembering something, but not yet embodying it. Surrender is embodiment. It's when love stops being something you seek and becomes something you are. For the divine masculine, surrender is especially challenging, because surrender feels like failure, feels like losing control, like admitting defeat, like stepping into the unknown without armor. But control has already failed him. Control kept him disconnected. Control kept him numb. Control kept him repeating the same emotional loops. This new moon stripped away the illusion that control equals safety. And now surrender is not a choice. It's a necessity. For the divine masculine, surrender means feeling emotions instead of managing them, allowing truth instead of defending against it, sitting in uncertainty instead of escaping it. This surrender happens internally first, not in actions, not in communication, but in identity. He stops being the man who avoids. He becomes the man who witnesses himself honestly. And that internal shift cannot be rushed. Any attempt to force action before this surrender completes will only create regression. That's why silence often follows surrender, because silence is integration. For the divine feminine, surrender looks very different. It looks like release of responsibility, release of the belief that it's your job to awaken him, to hold the space, to stay patient no matter the cost. That belief kept you trapped in waiting. Surrender asks you to stop waiting, not because the connection doesn't matter, but because you matter more. Surrender for the divine feminine means choosing peace without guilt, living fully without apology, trusting that alignment does not require sacrifice. This is where many people get stuck. They think, if I let go, it will all disappear. But what disappears is not love. What disappears is illusion. Illusion that love requires suffering. Illusion that union requires self-abandonment. Illusion that timing can be manipulated. Union does not respond to pressure. It responds to truth. And truth emerges only when both souls are aligned within themselves. This is why surrender often brings a sense of emptiness at first. The old adrenaline is gone. The emotional highs and lows disappear. The familiar intensity fades. And the ego panics. It says, this doesn't feel like love anymore. But love was never meant to feel like anxiety. Peace feels unfamiliar when you've lived in survival mode. Stillness feels boring when you're addicted to emotional chaos. But stillness is where real union is born. Because stillness allows clarity, and clarity reveals something powerful. Union is not something that happens to you. It's something that emerges through you. When you stop forcing the outcome, you stop recreating the old dynamic. When you stop chasing, there is no one to run. When you stop waiting, there is no power imbalance. When you stop proving your worth becomes undeniable. This is the paradox of surrender. The moment you no longer need union is the moment union becomes possible. Not guaranteed, not promised, but possible. Because need collapses polarity, wholeness restores it. This new moon marks the end of effort-based love, the end of waiting rooms, the end of emotional bargaining, the end of, if I just do one more thing. Now the only path forward is embodiment, living your truth, honoring your needs, choosing alignment over attachment. Whatever comes next will arise naturally from that space. And that's the only union worth having. In the next part, we'll talk directly to you about what this moment is asking of you personally and how to move forward without fear. Stay with me. At this point in the journey, the most important question is no longer about the divine masculine. It's not, when will he reach out? When will things change externally? When will union happen? Those questions belong to an earlier phase. This new moon is asking something much deeper and much more personal. It's asking you, what are you being asked to release now? Because every major energetic shift on the twin flame path eventually turns inward. The journey always circles back to self. And right now, the message is clear, even if it feels uncomfortable. You are being asked to stop waiting for permission to live your life. For so long, your focus was outward, watching, sensing, interpreting, trying to understand what the connection meant, where it was going, and how to align with it. But the new moon doesn't illuminate the future. It reveals the present. And in the present moment, one truth stands out. You have already done the work. You've healed. You've processed. You've learned to sit with pain without becoming it. Now the question is, can you trust that? Can you trust the version of yourself that no longer needs answers? Because not needing answers is not giving up. It's graduating. This is the moment where the universe stops speaking in signs and starts speaking in silence. And silence is the language of completion. If you're feeling a strange lack of urgency, that's not stagnation. That's clarity. Your soul is no longer asking, what do I need to do? It's asking, what do I need to stop doing? Stop checking. Stop analyzing. Stop rehearsing conversations that may never happen. Those behaviors were coping mechanisms. They helped you survive uncertainty, but you no longer live in that phase. The new moon is asking you to release the habit of emotional vigilance, to stop scanning the horizon for proof, to stop bracing yourself, because bracing keeps you in the past. It keeps you in a version of yourself that expected loss, and that version no longer fits. Let me ask you a question that may feel confronting. Who are you when you are not waiting, not hoping, not holding space, not preparing for disappointment? Who are you when you wake up and your life belongs to you? This new moon is not demanding action. It's inviting honesty. Honesty about what you want. Honesty about what you deserve. Honesty about what you've outgrown. You are being asked to choose presence over potential. Presence is where life actually happens. Potential is where imagination lives, and imagination can trap you if it replaces reality. This doesn't mean abandoning faith. It means anchoring faith in yourself, not in outcomes. You don't need to make decisions about the future right now. You don't need to define what this connection will become. You simply need to live truthfully today. That means following what feels alive, not what feels familiar. Investing energy where it's reciprocated. Honoring your boundaries without explaining them. This is not selfishness. It's alignment. And alignment always feels like relief before it feels like joy. You may notice old desires falling away. Things you thought you wanted no longer excite you. That's not loss. That's refinement. Your soul is shedding what was driven by lack. And lack cannot coexist with wholeness. You may also notice discomfort. Moments of emptiness. Moments of boredom. Moments where you think, is this it? Those moments are thresholds. They are invitations to discover who you are without drama, without longing, without struggle. That version of you is powerful. But power feels quiet. And quiet can be unsettling when you're used to intensity. Here's the most important thing this new moon wants you to know. You are not behind. You did not miss your chance. You did not fail the journey. You are exactly where you need to be. The fact that you're here grounded, aware, and no longer desperate means the cycle has completed. Whatever unfolds next will not require you to suffer to earn it. It will meet you where you stand, but only if you stand in your truth. This is the moment to trust yourself more than the story, more than the timeline, more than the longing. Trust your nervous system. Trust the peace. Trust the absence of chaos, because chaos was never love. It was a signal that something was unbalanced. Now balance has returned. And balance is the soil from which everything real grows. In the final part, we'll close this new moon update with a message of hope, empowerment, and grounded faith. And I'll invite you to take the next step, not toward union but toward yourself. Stay with me. As we come to the end of this new moon update, I want you to pause for a moment. Not to think, not to analyze, not to search for meaning. Just pause. Because endings like this one are not meant to be understood immediately. They are meant to be felt. This new moon did not arrive to give you answers. It arrived to give you ground. Something solid beneath your feet. For so long, the twin flame journey may have felt like standing on shifting sand, never knowing what was real, what was coming, or where you stood. But now something has changed. Not externally, not visibly, internally. And internal shifts are the only ones that last. This chapter was never about forcing reunion. It was never about waiting long enough or loving hard enough. It was about becoming whole enough to no longer need the struggle. That is the victory no one talks about. Because it doesn't look like fireworks. It looks like peace. And peace doesn't beg for attention. Simply is. If you're feeling calm right now, honor that. If you're feeling uncertain but grounded, honor that too. You are not meant to rush this moment. You are meant to inhabit it. Because this is the space where your power returns to you. Not power over outcomes. Not power over another person. Power over yourself. The kind of power that comes from self-trust. The kind that doesn't need reassurance. The kind that doesn't collapse when things are unclear. The kind that knows, whatever is aligned will find me without force. That knowing is the foundation of every true union. Whether with another or with life itself. This new moon did not take anything from you. It gave you something invaluable. Freedom from the old cycle. Freedom from emotional bargaining. Freedom from self-abandonment. Freedom from believing love must hurt to be real. And that freedom may feel strange at first. You might miss the intensity, the drama, the feeling of being pulled. But intensity was never the goal. Integrity was. Wholeness was. And now you are standing in it. Whatever comes next will not require you to lose yourself again. It will meet you where you are, grounded, present, alive. That is the promise of this new moon. Not a promise of reunion. Not a promise of outcomes. A promise of alignment. And alignment always delivers what belongs to you, even if it looks different than you imagined. So as you move forward from this moment, carry this with you. You don't need to chase signs anymore. You don't need to decode silence. You don't need to wait for permission. Your life is happening now. Love is happening now. Growth is happening now. And you are allowed to participate fully. If this message resonated with you, let it land gently. You don't need to do anything with it. Just let it integrate. And when you're ready, I invite you to share. If you feel called, leave a comment below and tell me, how did this new moon energy show up for you? What shifted inside you that you didn't expect? Your experience matters. If this video supported you on your journey, please take a moment to like it. Not for the algorithm, but as a way of anchoring this energy. And if you'd like to continue walking this path together, subscribe to the channel. More twin flame updates are coming, not to create attachment, but to support clarity, grounding, and self-trust as this journey continues to unfold. Remember this. You were never meant to lose yourself to find love. You were meant to find yourself, and let love meet you there. Thank you for being here.